The rise and fall of
television ratings.
In college, I started a strange hobby, charting television ratings year by year from 1950 to, well, now. It will never be complete, except television is totally dying to the point where even I consume most of my media online, so television ratings are something everybody cares about, but few know why. And I'll tell you why. It's because you are the product they're selling. TV is free because you are the needed product. Advertisers are taking you captive and selling the neurotransmitters behind your eyeballs to people who exploit said neurotransmitters and make you look at advertisements for Geico or beer so that you will spend your money. But I'm not judging. If I could only get 1,000 of you to subscribe, I would use you for the same nefarious deed.
Subscribe right now. It's the button at the bottom right of your screen. I have student loans to pay, and I need those sweet, sweet AdSense dollars.
But just as the Roman Empire was destroyed by uncouth Germanic tribes who infiltrated the north, so too television is succumbing to the uncultured swine of YouTube, Netflix, and whatever Disney's doing. Speaking of Disney, you should watch the other videos that I have that are all about me being obsessed with ranking Disney movies. For close to 70 years, television has been the reigning king of media. It still is probably considered the most prevalent form of media, but online options are very quickly taking its place. Netflix and Hulu don't release numbers yet, but it has been figured that these two conglomerates have numbers that at least rivaled that of TV in recent years. But it didn't start that way. Once upon a time, the reigning king of media was radio. When radio was king, you watched the radio. That was totally normal. In the late 40s, though, that all changed. By 1950, Nielsen started taking a sample of the American populace and figuring out a statistically accurate number for how many people were watching what. This was not unprecedented. They had already done the same thing for radio years before, but 1950 was the first year that they started tracking television. And that's when you get your first figures for the average amount of viewers watching television. In 1950, only the top 30 shows had information about numbers until the mid-1980s when magazines began publishing numbers at a more frequent rate. But most people only remember shows that landed in the top 30 television programs anyway. These types of shows include I Love Lucy, Make Room for Daddy, The Lone Ranger, Gilligan's Island, The Golden Girls, so yeah, you're probably good. Anyway, by 1950, Texaco Star Theater had the number one spot at 6.3 million viewers, and that was huge in 1950. By 51, the top spot was Proto-American Idol, Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts. It jumped 2 million to a little under 8.3 million viewers. Also, 11 of the shows that were smaller than that number one spot in 1951 were bigger than the number one show in 1950. 1952 saw Queen of Comedy Lucille Ball jump into number one at 13.7 million, a full 5 million more eyeballs on that red-haired loon. I love you, Lucy, no disrespect intended. And every top 30 show was bigger in 1952 than the number one show in 1950. In 1953, I Love Lucy jumped to 15 million viewers and stayed between 15 and 16 million for 2 seasons until Lucy reached its zenith at 17 million in 1956. That's when Gunsmoke took over at 18 million. Ratings stayed at that level or lower until
So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars.
The Beverly Hillbillies was the first television show to break that 20 million rating barrier consistently enough for its average rating to reflect it. And by this point, comedy reigned king, especially on CBS. Actually, name a classic comedy, any classic comedy, it was probably on CBS. Holy crap. Are you sure CBS doesn't stand for Comedy Broadcasting Station? Huh?
No, you're right. That wasn't funny.
As a matter of fact, CBS had most of the hits on television altogether. People didn't seem to want to stand up and change their channels. It took a huge show to take a night over CBS at this point, like Bonanza or Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. Did I tell you I review Disney movies? You can watch them by pressing that little button that's up there in the corner.
Shut up, Trent.
But CBS was still the reigning king of primetime. It's also at this point that CBS decided to do what has now been branded as the Rural Purge. No, not that purge. A little less sinister than that. One by one, CBS axed everything with a tree in it. Or that's the way the guy who played Mr. Haney on Green Acres eloquently put it. And shows like All in the Family, The Jeffersons, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Maude began their run on CBS. After almost a full decade of not being able to break the 20 million viewer mark, All in the Family finally destroyed that glass ceiling in 1971, becoming the first show to be the #1 television program for 5 seasons in a row. And CBS spun off All in the Family and The Mary Tyler Moore Show until they had a full roster of comedies to fill out CBS's schedule. After a full 2 decades of prominence from CBS, though, ABC began to capitalize on the very young market of viewers that began watching Lassie and the Lone Ranger in the 50s and 60s.
And that is where we end this week's show. This initial 3-part series is only going to scratch the surface of television ratings. So, which TV shows would you like to see me detail in the future? Leave a comment below with suggestions for me. Join us next week for my Cinderella review and ranking. I'm so excited, we're finally at the good movies now. And join me in subsequent weeks for part 2 of the rise and fall of television ratings. We'll be discussing the rise of ABC and NBC from the late 70s through the 90s. And then part 3 will discuss the rise of reality TV and the hurtling fall of television ratings as we now currently know them. Like and subscribe so you don't miss content analyzing everything related to media. Also, click the bell because we're starting to get into the good Disney movies now, and you won't want to miss these rankings. Check out my Facebook page to vote on things. Right now, we are in the midst of a favorite Disney movie bracket. There's a link to my Facebook page in the doobly-doo. Check it out and vote for the one that you like the best. Your votes and your comments will influence a future video. So let me know what your favorite Disney movies are. Vote now before it's too late. I usually make about 3 polls a week, so there's almost always a new poll coming out for you. And we're only about 12 movies in so far, so you have plenty of movies still left to vote on. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you again next week on Tuesday at 4 o'clock with my Cinderella review.